Is this thing on?
Are you ready, Matt?
You're listening to Box Office Bingers
with Matt Diaz and Ernesto Santos.
Good evening, folks. We have a wonderful evening's entertainment lined up for you.
We know each other. He's a friend from work.
Box Office Bingers.
And the only way that I know how to do it is to find you a bloody good dump.
He's my friend. I don't have friends. I got family.
I can do this all day.
You know, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything.
Matt, we're back. We're getting ready to close out the Oscars. I mean, we got pretty much one more and then our prediction episode. I mean, I think for the most part, we're done. There's like we got a couple we got to scoop up here on the last end. But I think this week we're gonna be closing out the animated as far as like what we're gonna be quote unquote reviewing. We got a lot we're gonna talk about this week.
Oh, I mean, we have a lot. We have a ton of stuff we're going to be talking about this week for sure. Yeah, this is our last episode before we start diving into our Oscars predictions episode. So I am very excited to start I mean, this is very different from what we usually do for the Oscars. So I feel like you said this before, we are very much well prepared for this Oscar season. We've been more prepared than we ever have before. You're even having designated episodes devoted just to Oscar nominations, and we got a plan in place to get things a little more organized. Ah, man, this is great.
Yeah, this has been every year we get a little bit more prepared. I think once again this year we are the most prepared, especially for our predictions episode next week.
Yeah, for sure. And so the main thing we're going to be focused on this week is our animated features. So just giving you a timeline of what this episode is going to consist of. We have a kind of a lot, but also not a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Ernesto knows what I mean, but like we got a lot to talk about, but also maybe not a lot to talk about. But anyway, we're going to start off by talking about all the nominations for our shorts. So we have our live action shorts, our animated shorts, and our documentary shorts. And then from there, we're going to go into our documentary feature film. So there are 5 films that were nominated this year for the Oscars, like they are every year. So we got 5. So we're talking about the documentary features. And then we're going to wrap things up by discussing our animated features. And there's 3 left that we have not discussed yet. And that is Wallace and Gromit, Revenge Most Foul. We have Flow and Memoirs of a Snail. And Flow is actually the only one of the 3 that has been nominated twice. Is nominated for Best International Feature, which we discussed last week. So we're going to be kind of wrapping up as well as the last film to talk about our international feature categories, as well as in kind of talking about as a whole from the animation categories. And like we stated before as well, the other 2 films that were nominated for Best Animated Feature were The Wild Robot and Inside Out 2, which we have covered in other episodes. So that's the timeline we have for you guys. And then basically that's going to wrap up the bulk of almost every nomination that's been out so far. And then in our predictions episode, we're going to be diving in, getting some of the other films that were nominated for some of the technical awards. So be sure to hear our thoughts on Maria, which was nominated for Best Cinematography, Best A Better Man, that was nominated for Best Visual Effects, The Apprentice, which there were 2 acting nominations for that, and then Sing Sing, which was nominated for Colman Domingo for his performance in that film as well. So did I miss one? Did I miss any?
A Different Man for makeup and hairstyling.
There you go. Thank you. Yes, and so we're going to be covering that movie as well in conjunction to our predictions episode. So there's we're not done yet, but we got the bulk of these in this front half that we got for you guys. We're not front half. This episode.
You know,
words are. All right, let's get started with the nominees for Best Animated Short Film. So if you're watching us on YouTube, you see the list right here. But I'm gonna go over them. I'm gonna go over the nominees, and then we'll talk about each short individually. So the nominees are Beautiful Men, In the Shadows of the Cypress, Magic Candles, Wander to Wonder, and Yuck. So we're gonna go right in order here. Let's start talking about Beautiful Men.
That was weird. Like they they were all kind of all the shorts were kind of like all over the place.
I'm
They were
not.
just kind of all over
Yeah.
the place. This Beautiful Man was like this weird claymation with these bald guys trying to get hair transplants to better their life, and then it's like, I don't want to look at a claymation dick. Like what's up with all this animated nudity this year? I think that in general, like between the animated shorts and one of the movies we're going to talk about later, it's just like, what's up with all this claymation nudity? Like, why? Who asked for this? Who said this is something that needs to come to the forefront of animation? How did that enhance the story?
It didn't. The it says the description is the insecurities of three bald brothers intensified during their stay at an Istanbul hotel for hair transplants. I I don't understand this documentary. I'm sorry, it's not a documentary. I don't understand this short at all. I mean, the description says it right there. You just said it. I just didn't understand the purpose of it. And what was hilarious was that I went to the theater to watch this. I was one of 5 people in the theater to watch the animated shorts.
My theater was packed. The entire theater was packed.
Really?
Yeah, I think the seat next to me was the only one that was empty.
Wow, that's crazy. I was one of 5 people. And so there was this older couple sitting closer to the like I was a little bit up, they were down. And so so uh once we had the warning for like here's for nudity, I thought it was just for the one short. I didn't realize that moving forward that we would be experiencing animated nudity from here on out. So there's that. And then it was funny because the lady up in the front with like I said the couple, she had a good time with it because as soon as it popped up, you see her down there going, ah!
I mean, it was funny. It was just weird.
It was strange. And then the best part about the whole going to the shorts things was that we had they were walking down the stairs. I was walking behind them. All the shorts were over, and she was talking with her husband, and she was like, "How long do you think it took them to make all those clay penises? Like, how long do you think they took all that time to make clay penises on
Like,
all these
yeah.
different edits?"
It's like look when he's just sitting there and he's just trying to get his wife and he's just sitting there and his thing's hanging out. It's like, oh look, you need oh no, like they took the shots, like, nah, we gotta work on that penis. Gotta make that penis maybe make it a little bit bigger. It's not showing up as much in frame.
Very strange. Yeah, that one was a little weird.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you. I don't understand the purpose behind it, and that's how it be sometimes with some of these shorts and documentaries, and like you watch the whole thing and you just don't understand the purpose of why this is made. I mean, the argument for all of these is like, was it well animated? Yes,
Yeah.
all of these are well animated. I feel like that's part of the course. It's like that's why you're nominated for the most part for being well animated. I feel like now it just comes down to the story to some cases, and this one I didn't really care for.
Yeah. I mean, you got to give respect for the sets they built. I mean, it was kind of cool. Like the animation they did was really cool. Like, you know, the fog scenes and just like building the whole hotel set. Like it was very, very intriguing. It was very nice to look at. Besides the clay penis.
And so the claymation penis. All right, so yeah, that one it was strange. It was weird. Let's move on to In the Shadow of the Cypress, which the synopsis reads. Living in a house by the sea with his daughter, a former captain. Oh, sorry, let me restart. Living in a house by the sea with his daughter, a former captain who has post-traumatic stress disorder leads a tough and secluded life.
Yeah, which we saw.
Yeah, I honestly, I didn't catch that was his daughter until I just read that.
It's funny you said that. I thought the exact same thing. I thought it was his wife.
His wife, yeah.
That he was smacking around.
Yeah, I this one was another one again, well animated. No one's questioned that. A lot of like, it's not spoon feeding you the information. A lot of them is visually. There was barely any dialogue in this short, so kind of lot to go off of here. I thought it was. I was just watching this whole thing. I was just confused the entire time, and so I didn't. it's not. I feel like there was something I was just missing in this short, but otherwise it was okay.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun. The animation was kind of cool.
hmm
Um,
Again,
I thought it was cool.
same.
Like, I did think it was cool when like you could tell he was having flashbacks. Like his whole face would turn blue, and just like you
Yes.
would. I think the way that they visualized like that trauma from that event, like how it affected him. I thought that the way that they showed that was effective.
Yeah, I think so too, and I think the whale provided an interesting like scenario there. I didn't understand its purpose, or maybe that was like there's a higher purpose in like finishing out the like saving this whale or something that helped him through his post traumatic stress disorder. I don't know.
I don't know.
I was trying to understand the symbols of the whale, and I just couldn't get there. So there's that one too. Magic candies. What are your thoughts on magic candies? I feel like this one's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I mean, he ate the candy, and then the first what was it? The couch started talking to him, and it was the
Yeah.
dog. I mean, it was cute. It was fine.
Yeah, it was a cute one. The description reads, and this is, I think, in my opinion, this is probably going to be the favorite because I think this was like the one that actually has a clear story that everyone can understand.
Yeah.
And it was also adapted from a children's novel.
Mm.
So if you are familiar with the book, then and you see this translated into an animated short film, then yeah, I feel like this one's out of all of them, this was probably the most easily digestible and probably going to be the most recognizable short. And so, just as a whole perspective, I think this one is probably is the leading contender to potentially win. That's a guess on my book.
Yeah. I mean,
Uh,
if you've got a following, if it has a following from a children's book, that's going to be helpful. Gives it a stronger case for it to win.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess in a way, uh, like each marble that he ate, he was able to interact with something that allowed him to maybe understand. Like he was talking, he ate one that looked like his dog, and so he's able to talk with his dog, and he was able to get an understanding where his dog was coming from. And the same with his dad, and then his grandmother who passed away, and then he was able to like at the end of the day, he's like, oh, I just got to be me. And then like I just gotta get the courage to ask people to play with me, and then I can create friends and then get more confidence. It's like, all right, yeah, I get it. You talk to everybody around you, learn some life lessons, and then start thinking you're doing your own life.
Yeah. Yeah, I see that. I mean, it was a cute story.
It was definitely a cute story. Wander to Wonder.
Is
This was my favorite.
this one was your favorite?
Yes.
I think I'm getting confused. Is this the British one?
This was the one where they had the miniature people.
Okay, more animated nudity. This is okay.
Yes, this
one
the
was your
one.
favorite?
Yes.
Okay. I would love to hear your case on this.
This one says in the 1980s, Mary, Billy Budd, and Fumbleton starred in the children's television program Wander to Wonder. They are left alone in the studio after the show's originator passed away. To me, this was kind of a tragic comedy. You have these little mini people, at least in the story that is presented, that all they knew was this camera and the animators, like in this was the originator, the show's originator. So they knew one person, and they're having a good time creating the show. And then once he passes away, they lost the meaning of life. Like, what are we doing? It's so much so that the whole thing just bursts into flames and chaos, and they don't know what to do. And they're they're like asking the camera for help because that's all they know. And then once the place goes on fire and the whole world's to destruction, they realize there's an outside world, and then it looks like they're about to explore what's outside the confines of this studio that was built. I don't know. I feel like again, some parts were funny, some parts were just like they're very tragic. I don't know. I really like this. Also, camera, just video stuff that was already intriguing. There was some meta-ness to it because I thought we were just going to be following like these raunchy people in a children's set, and then it became a little bit more than just that. So yeah, I kind of like it for those reasons.
Okay, I didn't really get all that, but I see what you're throwing down there, Matthew.
Okay.
I'm kind of feeling you on that now. I can see. Now thinking about it now, I can see it. Okay, it was a little crude for me, but you know, I want a
Don't
little
get me
bit
wrong.
more of animated nudity, but it makes sense to the story.
Yeah, and honestly, the nudity from both Wander to Wonder and Beautiful. Honestly, I thought Beautiful Men was more awkward than Wander to Wander. This Wander to Wander, this man was just like he didn't like pants, and he just running around with his little dick running out. Like that's all. That's that's all he wanted to do. He just wanted to be free. So like that one, I was able to get by. The other one, I don't know. I feel like that was more unnecessary than this one, in my opinion.
Okay,
Uh, but yeah, I really respond to this one. This one's clearly my favorite. I don't think it's gonna win, but I to me this was the one that kind of perked me up a little bit. I was like, oh, this one feels a little bit different than the other ones. So let's see what this is all about.
Hmm.
In my opinion, it ended too soon. I would have watched another 20 minutes of that.
okay.
So yeah, I liked it. And the last one is Yuck. What are your thoughts on Yuck?
Yuck is actually the one that I thought I actually liked this one. I thought it was a cute
Okay.
story. You know, these two kids and what I don't know. This is like a homeless encampment. Are they on vacation? I couldn't really.
I think they're just on vacation. I
Okay.
didn't think yeah.
It just seemed really off to me. Either way, yeah, I liked it. Like, you know, little kids and kind of like looking at those dynamics and like young love and how kids respond to that. Like, yeah, they were making fun of them at first, but then immediately after, when they went to bed, he could tell that they were all that it's something that's everybody thinks about, and
Yeah.
that we all experience it in different ways, and that he shouldn't feel bad for like having feelings for this little girl, and like, you know, I don't know. It was
Yeah, it's just like
a cute little story about young love.
yeah, I totally agree with that. It's like kind of discovering like, you know, it's kind of like that transition like you're entering puberty.
Yeah,
And so things started to change, you know, your thought process a little bit differently. You start getting feelings for other people. It's like, yeah, you get that. And that's kind of like the feeling that you would get. Like you kind of like, oh no, it's gross, but I kind of want to try it out, you know? And so like you kind of get I think they captured that really well of that adolescence to going into like discovering potentially you know, kind of first love in a sense in a way.
yeah,
And I thought that was like visually, it was pretty cool just seeing like the glowy pink lips,
yeah,
and like you can see like that's when you start forming an attachment or some sort of feelings for another person. That was the symbol, and you can see that with other people, especially like some of the older people, some of the parents. Like you see, like everyone loves everyone, you know. So it's kind of one of those situations. I think this one has like, if I had to put a guess, I think Magic Candies has like, in my eyes, potentially a front runner. I think Yuck is a secondary, in my opinion.
okay,
So I think those two are probably the more likely to potentially get the win. But we'll dive into that more in our predictions episode. But just as of like watching them as all of them, like okay, I can see where maybe the lines are, you know, where the wins might land.
yeah, okay.
All right, so those are our thoughts on the animated short films. Now let's start talking about the nominees for the live action short films. And again, we'll do the same process. We hear the nominees, and then we'll go off them one by one. Aline, I believe that's how you pronounce the first one.
I thought it was Alien, but
Alien, I'll take that too. Ingenue, I'm
Anjou?
not a robot.
Anuja.
The Anuja, oh, maybe one of the two.
I think it's Anuja.
Anuja, okay. The Last Ranger and The Man Who Could Not Remain Silent. So let's start with the first one.
So I think this is the one with the family going to the appointment, I believe, right?
Yes. Yeah. They were going to get I think
their
officially get his
immigration.
green card.
Going for his immigration appointment, and they're, you know, it's kind of really chaotic in the beginning. There, you know, it's like chaotic but almost hopeful, and I kind of like in the middle, like the tonally, it just shifted, and where it was almost like set like a trap for ICE to come and grab them. And then later on, you find out that this is like a common practice that they use to try to grab people. It's kind of crazy, especially in the climate of our nation right now. This is a hot button topic. But I thought this short was well done. So it's very fitting to see why it was nominated.
Yeah, the description reads the couple face up to. That doesn't make any sense. I'm assuming a couple. I'm just going to skip that part. A couple deals with a dangerous immigration process, and that's pretty much what we saw in the short here. And yeah, I thought they did a really good job like capturing like the chaos and the intensity of it building. Like I felt tense the entire time.
Oh yeah.
Like calling on the phone, tapping. Like they did get a really job making like how they're feeling translating to the audience,
Mm.
and how scary this process can be, and how ICE was coming in, and then at the end of the day, it was still ending like, and it still had a tragic ending,
Oh,
but
absolutely.
it could have been worse because at this point they took the husband and the child, and at least the mom was able to get the child back.
Yeah.
And so like there's that aspect of it, but then the dad still had to go and go through that process, and who knows if they'll ever see him again.
Yeah. Very true.
And that's the scary part, and that's happening right here in the U.S. And that's even the scarier part about all of this, and the fact that like it's a common practice to just take people while they're trying to get their paperwork. Like that's insane to me. Like they said, it feels like a trap, but that's the only way you can do this process, and all these procedures you have to go through, all this paperwork, and they're making it nearly impossible. And then you have this to worry about on top of that. It's I think this is a short to kind of give like an eye opening
Yeah.
to a wider audience for
Yeah.
sure.
Because it was already sad enough, but to me, it was the title card at the end that really
Mm-hmm.
showcased, like, hey, this is a real thing this is a real thing that happens.
For sure. For sure. All right, let's talk about the next one.
Anuja. I liked it. What I was really upset about is that I felt like I got no closure at the end of it. Like you're built
Mm-hmm.
up with this story with this little girl who has to kind of make this choice. You never know if she makes the choice, and I don't know if that was the point, but I kind of wish I would have gotten like at least 5 minutes more just to kind of like it ended, and I was like, that's it. And I thought it
Yeah.
was cool that it was that the actress was a real she's a real foster kid. I think if I remember that.
It says that. Yeah. She said they found her to be part of this movie or part of the short, and she was representing true fact, like what is actually going on. They said when a gifted 9-year-old girl who works in a garment factory is offered a once in a lifetime chance to attend school, she is forced to make a heart wrenching decision that will determine her and her sister's fate. And unfortunately, we never learned that fate. And I think that was intentionally the point. Like I
Yeah.
feel like having that open ended kind of offered like these are things that are happening right now that these children don't get these offers all the time, but they're forced to make decisions at a very young age on kind of bettering their future or staying with their family in some cases. And in her case, and also she wasn't um she had no family in the short. It was just her and her sister. So they're just kind of like hustling, just trying to make ends meet.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, in the whole scene, I kind of love the whole scene of her and her having a day together. And
Yeah,
just like
it
that
was
was her
beautiful.
happiest moment. But it also plays to maybe that's why she didn't like it's very plausible for her not to have gone to the test because, she loves spending time with her sister and she doesn't want to leave her sister behind.
Yeah, and all that makes sense. And I don't know how this because it was a boarding school. I think she was doing
Yeah.
the test for. So
Yeah.
if she got accepted, then she would be going away. And the sister wanted her to go. She's like, no, I can't do that. That's going to be on you. And I mean, as a 9-year-old to make that decision, that's a tough decision to make.
Yeah. But her
Um,
sister's like, you have a chance that I don't. And she's willing to sacrifice her time with her so that her sister can have a better life.
Yeah, I thought it was I thought it was very endearing and very moving. I
Yeah.
thought that was
It
another
was a good one.
powerful, yeah, another powerful short on this list. Let's talk about the next one. I am not a robot. I think this is out of all of them the funniest.
Yeah,
Out
this
of
one was probably my favorite. Like
yeah,
this one was the most entertaining to watch. Like this girl she's at work and she's still doing one of those capture things that you see if you're not a robot, and like she had to. It was just so weird because she couldn't get past it, and then she had to call this call center. And they're like, "Well, you might be a robot," and it just spirals out of that. Newsflash: she finds out she is a robot. And like her boyfriend and this lady who works for the robot company come to her job, to like break the news to her. It was really strange, but it was also really funny.
Yeah,
What I think is really funny about it is that it like the sex robot thing, there's a real market for that. I remember reading a book
mhm.
a couple years ago, and it's like it seems like this is like really super futuristic, but this is probably not far from the future of where we are with robotics.
I mean, you're probably not wrong. And it's funny because the way that this short was presented, it just like it started off as normal as it can be. Is like, oh, I need to get into this login through the captcha test. Is like, are you a robot? And then she's like, she keeps failing. And then I thought it was going to be like a paranoia thing where she was like, am I a robot? Just keeps questioning herself. But it's and then she had to go take a test. She's like, and they're like, oh yeah, no, you're a robot. And then it leads to like, so you found out you're a robot. And you're like, wait, what? What's happening? And I thought to me is like, oh, this is actually quite genius.
Yeah.
Like this is like a fun way to play with that idea of the simple test we all have to take to make sure we're not a robot.
Yeah,
But what
that's
if you
cool.
actually were? I feel like that's the pitch right there. It's like, what if you were a robot? How would you respond to that? And it's such a funny idea that I feel like, and also this was one of the last ones I watched out of the live action shorts,
Yeah.
and it was to me it was like such a breath of fresh air because all these other ones are dealing with powerful subject matter or pretty much all of them are dealing with like strong subject matter, and then here comes this one where it's like we're gonna lighten the load a little bit.
Yeah. It
And
was a
then
refreshing change.
for sure. I was like, wait, am I laughing? It's like, am I supposed to laugh at these? But yeah, I was like, yeah, no, this is pretty good. And then it kind of ends in a weird way too, where she was like, you can't harm yourself. And she's like, watch me. And then she just jumps off the parking garage.
And then, and then she lives. And then and then the score at the end is like during the credits. I thought this is what really sold it for me. I just thought it was really well constructed. It was really well done.
I thought so too. I had a good time. I had a good time with it. Um, so yeah, that's I Am Not a Robot. Now let's talk about The Last Ranger. Let's talk about that
Yeah, it was very sad. This one
one.
is this one's very sad. It's like with South Africa, they're dealing with this, I guess, this outpost group that's kind of managing the animals in the safari area, just to watch out for poachers. And we follow this ranger, and she picks up this little girl, and she goes with her to this. She's been called to go check on something, and then lo and behold, there's some poachers there, and they they go to take out the rhino. They shoot the rhino, and then eventually you get this like semi-graphic vision of them cutting off this rhino horn, and I'm sure that was done intentionally.
Hmm.
But yeah, it was very sad. And then the adult ranger dies, and then the last ranger is almost like a play on it, because then the lady dies and she almost like passes a mantle to this little girl, and now this little girl kind of does it in honor of her, because yeah, like it's a sad and shitty job, but somebody has to do it. And
Yeah.
if there's nobody else there, then if you care enough for the animals, then you would be the one to step up and do it as well. That was
Yeah.
kind of like my takeaway from it.
Yeah, and it's I thought again another powerful short that came with this. I thought the story was told very well, and yeah, it's heartbreaking, and I think that's part of the job too. And they say like thousands or hundreds of people die in this profession, just trying to save the animals, and these people are just trying to make a quick buck. And then I was also extremely sad that the girl's father was the one that was showing the poachers um, where the rhinos are so he can get a paycheck because he's trying to provide for his family. And what he's doing is wrong, but he's left to his own devices and trying to get a better life for himself and for his family. So that's a tough decision there. Then you have the other people who are protecting these animals. And so it just feels like it's a vicious cycle all the way around for the people in that community. And so yeah, then obviously that led to someone's death, the adult ranger, and then a couple of years passed by, and now the kid is stepping up and like, hey, I'm going to do this now. I want to protect these rhinos and these animals. And they said that this was, and we also saw some real footage, real pictures of some of the poaching there. And like, yeah, I thought this was a well made short for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially I think the shorts the live action shorts were pretty strong this year.
Yes. That being said, I think, in my opinion, the weaker of all of them comes to the man who could not remain silent.
Yeah, it was
Uh, which I feel like I think honestly the main thing about this short that I feel like was a little bit underwhelming was the fact that it was only 13 minutes, and I don't think it did much with that with its runtime. Like I'm not a robot. Did achieved a really cohesive, straightforward narrative within its short runtime as well. But this one, I feel like I didn't understand the weight of the situation, and very similar to what was the first one called again? Aline.
Alien, yeah.
Alenia. Like that one, like I feel like within 22 minutes was able to achieve, and which is somewhat similar to A Man Who Could Not Remain Silent. Offering this tension between a very difficult situation, and I feel like that one was able to translate that more than A Man Who Could Not Remain Silent. And it's follows. It's in 1993, and Bosania and Herzegovina. Um, I'm not sure what that meant. Anyway, that was just a pause in the sentence. A passenger train is stopped by paramilitary forces in an ethnic cleansing operation as they haul off innocent civilians. Only one man out of 500 passengers dares to stand up to them. And even with that description, I never got the weight of that. I never
No.
got the weight that out of all the people they took, only one person did not remain silent, yet he was also taken away.
Yeah, because we're not seeing, we don't see everybody else. We just see this one room in the car.
Yeah, I feel like I just didn't understand. I just didn't capture the weight of the situation was not captured efficient like in our other ones. So this was the only one that I just felt like, given more time, like make this 22 minutes. Give us an extra 5 minutes. I think it would have translated a little bit more than what we ended up getting.
Yeah,
So
what came of that? Like he didn't remain silent, and then what? and then what happens?
And then they took him.
Yeah.
And that's it. And then they show a title card, and that was it. Yeah, I just feel like as far as a storytelling perspective, I could have wanted a little bit more just to understand the weight of the situation. So therefore, for me, this was kind of like the weaker of all of them.
Yeah, I agree.
But aside from that, again, like you were mentioning earlier, all the other ones, solid lineup of live action shorts. I was very impressed with. I mean, even the last man who could not, the man who could not remain silent. That one was fine. It just doesn't hold up within the other ones as far as storytelling is concerned.
Yeah, I agree. Like it was really tense. You could feel the tenseness of the moment, but as far as like what you explained, I didn't get any of it.
Yeah, I agree. So another solid offering from the live action short nominees. And again, during our predictions episode next week, we're going to be seeing which ones is more likely than not to win the nominations, which ones we think should win, and also which ones we think will likely win. So we'll be having that conversation next week. Let's start moving on to the nominees for the documentary short films. And the nominees are Death by Numbers, I Am Ready Warden, Innocent, Instruments of a Beating Heart, and The Only Girl in the Orchestra. Let's start with Death by Numbers, which, for those who are unfamiliar with how the state of how the Oscars are going, this one was the most difficult to find.
Yeah.
Because this one was the one that a lot of people were trying to get to. Luckily, we were able to finally watch it, and the last one to watch out of the documentary shorts for us anyway. Anyway, your thoughts on Death by Numbers?
It was incredibly tragic. I mean, just to revisit the Parkland shooting and just kind of see it from this different perspective. I don't know. Like, there's really no other way for me. I mean, it was just heartbreaking.
Yeah, following 4 years after being shot with an RA-15 in her high school, Samantha.
I think it's AR.
AR-15 in her high school. Samantha Futenes reckons with existential questions of hatred and justice as she prepares to confront her shooter. And I think just dealing with that, like some people just, even just looking at it on a news perspective, they see it on the news, it's a tragic thing that happened, and they forget about it. And this short kind of recognizes, at least highlights one person who was affected by a school shooting 4 years later that is still haunting them to this day, and they're still dealing with it to this day. Like, to everyone else around the world, there was just a tragic shooting that happened. But for a lot of other people who were affected by it, this is now becoming their life. And we see just a small snippet of how this is affecting her life. And yeah, and the fact that she was able to say those words to her shooter, and kind of just like, hey, this is my time to talk. You cannot silence me. And kind of just say what she trying to hopefully get some closure through this process. Yeah, this was a powerful documentary short for sure.
Yeah. I would also say the same thing about the next one, I Am Ready, Warden. I thought it was like really pretty moving to get to see both sides of that issue. The I Am Ready, Warden follows this inmate who's about to receive the death penalty for murdering this man, and you get the perspective of the victim's son, of the man who's on death row. Who's on death row about to be put to death, and also the was it the district attorney?
What do you mean, the district attorney?
Because there was the sheriff or the district attorney who was saying that.
Oh,
was
the
it the
decision to make
sheriff
the
or
decision.
was it the sheriff? It might have been the sheriff.
I think it was a district attorney. I'm not entirely. I don't remember, but yes, there was another person that played that was forced to make a final decision on whether or not he should get the death penalty or not, and ultimately he was overruled by his decision to not give him the death penalty.
Yeah,
that he got a lot of hate for, in his new position.
And what were your thoughts on it?
I know. I thought this, to me, out of all of them, this was the one, and this was the first one I watched too. This was the one that really, like, moved me.
Yeah.
Of how well told, getting your perspective on both ends of the side. I remember reading somebody saying, like, we should not give this murderer a platform. But I think by thinking that, not to say that he deserves a platform within this documentary, but I think what the documentary was trying to highlight was that, like, after this tragic event, here is what happened. Very similar to Death by Numbers. Here is the, like, years and years later, here's what happens after that.
Mm-hmm.
And you're seeing it through the perspective of the victim, and you're seeing it through the spectrum of the murderer. And at times you can see how how he has changed, and how prison has changed him, and how what life he was able to, appreciation for life, I guess, so to speak, that he was able to get within this system, and a different view of life that he was able to get out of it. And then now, does that, his new way of thinking, and how much he is apologized, and how much he is, like, is not asking for forgiveness, but like how much his viewpoints have changed, and the person who committed the murder was not the same person he is today. Does that person still deserve to live? And does that outweigh the horrible act of murder that he did, many years ago? And I think it's a compelling argument to have the viewer decide, even though we saw the outcome of what actually happened, but it just kind of sits with you a little bit longer, of like, you're feeling for the victim, but you're also, now here's a perspective of the murderer as well.
Yeah, I think to me, it was just a really strong argument for both. It really showcases both sides.
Yes.
Because a lot of times with documentaries or docu-shorts, like, the viewing of the subject matter is usually very one-sided. You don't get to see the other perspective for you to kind of make your own decision. They kind of spoon feed you what you're supposed to think, as opposed to, whereas this gives you a nuanced perspective of both sides and leaves you questioning everything on the way out, which is, I think it effectively achieved that.
I think so too. I don't believe that the purpose of this documentary is to give this murderer a platform. I don't believe that was the case at all, in my opinion. But I did walk out of there under a different perspective on, like, here are both sides of this situation, and now it's up to you to kind of reflect on it, because, like, the decision is made. It's not you for making a decision and what you think about it. Like, the decision was made. He went on death row, and he died. But just, like, hearing him talk to his son, hearing him talk to the people he affected and the family that he affected, seeing the reaction of the victim and the son, who had this man kill his father for doing nothing. Like you're seeing all of that, and then you're left to determine, like, how does that make you feel? What were your thoughts about this? I don't know. It like I said, it came up with a compelling argument and a very strong um, documentary choice. To just kind of just have some of these thoughts linger in your head.
I mean, to have this documentary, this short, but then also have the perspective of, like, you killed this guy's dad. Like, you basically killed, like, the one person that he looks up. Like, giving us that point of view is what makes it so, I think, really, really makes it so strong.
Yeah, and also, and as rightfully so, like, you're not, you kind of feel for both sides in a way. You're not rooting for one or the other, and you just feel like this is just a shitty situation to be in.
Yeah.
And you're not rooting for anybody. There's not justice to be had here. It's just, you know, is. And this is the cards that they were dealt in this. And like, you see how the victim is responding to this. It's like, even for him, he's like it's like, I should feel happy that he's dead, but I don't. Like, he's hearing the voicemail that he sent him minutes before he died, of like, I'm not asking for forgiveness, but I just want to let you know that I'm really, really sorry. And and he's conflicted with that. It's like, I know the right thing to do is maybe to forgive him, but also I don't want to, because you killed my father. You know what I mean? It's yeah. You're getting all of this all this information, and then it's up to you to see how you kind of feel about it.
Yeah. I thought it was really, yeah. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really well done. Like, it left me thinking at the end.
Absolutely.
Like, I could have seen that. I could have seen this as a full length documentary easily.
Yeah, I 100%.
Right? I could have, like, give me the full story, give me the full thing give me the full narrative on this. Like, this, I could have easily watched an hour and a half of that.
Yeah, and I think it's just how the short was made. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, we got about 35 minutes, and it was just done so well, going back and forth and just like getting more and more information, because they kick it off as like, this person murdered my father, and it's like, okay, yeah, no, he's a bad person. And then you get the other side of the story. It's like, okay, well, he was, but maybe he isn't no longer. I don't know. You just don't know.
Yeah, very effective at laying out the narrative.
Absolutely. Let's talk about Innocent.
Incident?
This one, Incident. Sorry, Incident. Yeah, this one was not as
Straightforward.
well. I just feel like that the way that they handled telling the story, just going kind of recounting the events of the incident of cops killing a black man for apparent no reason, and basically, here's all the facts that that you can see, and there's no dialogue in it for the most part. It's just basically all the stuff that was more or less the public record through probably the recording from the officers, from their cameras, their chest cameras, and then in addition to the street lights, the street cameras, and all that stuff. And they were kind of pulling together this narrative that I don't feel like did much to tell the story. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, you don't really learn anything until the very end, like the length of what the message they were trying to get out. It was, I mean, yeah, I didn't really care for it.
No, and don't get me wrong, like, this again, another horrible situation.
Yeah, but it could have been constructed better.
Absolutely, it definitely could have been constructed better. Another horrible situation where a black man is being murdered by the police for apparent no reason, and we can see it in the footage that it's kind of it's left to the audience to determine whether or not he pulled the gun out or not. And the documentary short is alluding to the fact that he did not pull out the gun, and that's just the police being antsy, and they shot him. And it was an intense situation that was constructed out of potentially nothing. And then here's this footage. It's almost like you're proving your case. I was like, is this a film, or should this be highlighted in court? You know what I mean? It's like, I don't understand the narrative here. I think the narrative was just poor.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah. Moving on to Instruments of a Beating Heart. Ernesto, your thoughts on this one?
It was cute. I thought it was cute of us trying to see these kids, go through this process of learning the score. And then I actually what something just unrelated. I really love the way they focus on the school process, like teaching
Mm.
the kids cooking and cleaning and serving and proper eating. And I don't know, it's just something very different than what we see here in our education system. Like out of everything, that to me that was the most intriguing.
Yeah, it's just like to your point, like seeing how for her the biggest thing, and we kind of feel that in our careers even. Like think of it like as going to work and you're just trying to figure something out and like being the new person and you're just like so frustrated that you just don't understand the thing and like how she was able to express her emotions. And at that moment, the most exciting and difficult thing she's done was learning her part in a larger part of a song. And at this point, she was able to overcome her obstacles, was able to uh, to to I guess she was able to learn the instrument, learn her part. She was happy at the end of it, but it was a tough struggle that she had to go through. And some of the teachers were being rough on her, but it wasn't like you saw. I was like, you know why I was trying to be, and they were trying to like have the kids understand why hard work is important and like not giving up and like why sometimes you got to be tough in order to get the job done and stuff like that to get this effectively. And like if you don't rehearse, you're not going to learn, and then you're going to have the rest of the kids. You're affecting the whole group. You're affecting the band,
Yeah.
and that's not good. It's not fair for everyone who was practicing and you weren't. So yeah, I think that was like kind of a good life lesson in general, highlighted in this documentary.
Yeah, teaching kids resilience. I think it's great.
Hmm. Yeah, I thought it was well put together. Again, another one that's just it's a very isolated situation, and to some degree, it's like, yeah, that shouldn't be that big of a deal. It's just a kid learning an instrument, but it's a little bit more than just that. There's a lot more. Like just learning a new thing is already difficult, let alone a first grader doing it. And then they get to now overcome the next step, and they learn this thing, and they can move on to the next hurdle they have in life. So just like a very small thing that kind of teaches you a lot at the end of the day. And the last one we have is the only girl in the orchestra. I feel like this was more just highlighting someone's career,
Yeah.
even though this Oren O'Brien didn't want it, and just highlighting this unsung hero celebrating tribulations musician, trailblazing musician Oren O'Brien, and the double bass she plays. And so it's just this musician who's been part of the music world for so long and was the first double bass player. And she was getting all this recognition, and she doesn't want any of that, and she just wants to play her instrument. And I think it was kind of endearing to kind of see that, kind of highlighting her career as well as seeing where she is now and kind of going into retirement.
Yeah, just kind of her thing at the end where she loved her. I loved her line at the end where she just talks about loving it and not, she didn't mind playing second fiddle. Like you can almost see that as like production, like because just
Mm.
production in general, because a lot of people focus on the people on stage, but they don't take into account the people who can build the sets, the people who are doing the lighting, the people who are running the cameras, the people who are making sure the audio is there. Like all these things are equally as important as the main lead that's there as well.
Yeah, a lot of, like, to your point, a lot of people focus on the conductor, but not the people who are playing the instruments. Like they play integral roles into this a larger thing that they're doing, and this is kind of a musician who is perfectly fine, being perfectly fine playing the role that she was playing, and she got a lot of success out of it. And you can see that kind of just brings her joy in doing that. And like she was also teaching other students and just the love of music. And it was kind of nice to see this documentary out of all the other ones. That it's not really having this larger agenda, just more like just the love of music. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Aside from Incident, I liked all of these documentary shorts.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think there's a clear front. There's a couple of clear front runners, but they're all pretty decent.
Yeah, I thought all these other ones were like a nice variety in this category. So there you go. That's our discussions on all of the uh, shorts that were nominated, the live action, the animated, live action, the documentary. So now let's start talking about some of our feature options. So now we're going to be talking about our documentary feature film. And those nominees are Black Box Diaries, No Other Land, Porcelain War, Soundtrack to a Coup d'etat.
Coup d'etat? I think it's coup
Yeah,
d'etat.
coup d'etat. That's exactly what it is. Well, I butchered that one. And Sugarcane. So let's start with right here on the top of the list, Black Box Diaries, that follows a journalist who investigates her own sexual assault, seeking to prosecute the high-profile offender. Her quest becomes a landmark case exposing Japan's outdated judicial and societal systems. Ernesto, your thought on this one?
I mean, it's a horrific thing that happened to her. To me, I actually, out of all the documentaries, this is the one I probably enjoyed the most. Because I just thought it was just the way she laid the narrative out and just her forethought to record everything and have it and being able to construct it into this documentaries to really lay out and showcase what it's like over there. And I felt like she was able to do that effectively. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, again, I think it's interesting because all of these documentaries that we're going to be talking about has dense and tragic subject matter.
Yeah.
So like there was not one that's kind of lift your spirits. These are all horrible situations. So it's weird to say that, yeah, I enjoyed this one. I enjoyed your suffering. But I think it's more along the lines of like, enjoying how you were able to tell this story and make me, the audience, understand your pain.
Yeah.
And I feel like most of them were able to convey that well. But I think Black Box Diaries, again, this is how you tell that story and trying to understand what she's trying to do. She's not trying to be a symbol. She just wants justice. And the determination for that justice is what the ride that we're going on. And so yeah, it's definitely a lot of this dense subject matter, but I like how she told her story. And there was some closure to it. There was like I liked how at the end there was some closure to the story. Like I feel like by the end of it, her 5-year journey, she was able to move on and got the justice she was kind of looking for. With that, let's move on to No Other Land. This one is a film by a Palestinian Israel collective, shows the destruction of the occupied West Bank's Masfer Yada by Israel soldiers and the alliance. Is it alliance? Yeah, the alliance between which develops between the Palestinian active Basil and the Israel journalist Yuval. I'm sorry if I butchered any of these names. Some of these are a little bit difficult. No Other Land. I feel like as far as a storytelling perspective was very repetitive. And I feel like after the first 30 minutes in a 2-hour documentary, we get the point. And it's kind of harsh to say that, but the rest of it just felt like that we were kind of running a cycle over and over again. And I just didn't understand. Like I understood it where we got there, but then like moving forward, I feel like we just ended in the same point that we began.
Yeah.
Here's this horrific situation that's happening. They're kind of bulldozing our homes and for no apparent reason, and this needs to be stopped. And then we have the journalists who are kind of reflecting with the situation that they're in, and then it literally restarts to they're bulldozing homes. This needs to be stopped. I'm posting this on social media. We're getting recognition to the media. No one's doing anything. Let's go sit at home and talk about it. Next day, same thing happens over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, and it's pretty dark. You're seeing homes being bulldozed. You're seeing people just being shot and like just walking down the street or whatever the case is, like not causing that immediate threat, but just being shot. And it's horrific to see, but I think it could have been condensed down. And this could have been a strong docu-short as opposed to a full-length documentary. Because if this was a docu-short, it would have been like in and out, like, wow, that's some pretty horrific shit. Like it would have been a lot as opposed to this, where not to diminish it, but it just felt like what are we doing? Like we're just sitting around watching you smoke, and you, I don't know. Again, I don't know.
Not to minimize it, but he's like, yeah, this sucks. I know, right? This really sucks. And then the next footage you show is just them bulldozing their house. It's like I know in a way we're just kind of watching these horrific events transpire. Like we're watching these events happen, and like it's not great. It's a horrible situation to be in, and you're doing your part. You are trying to get this information out there to seek help. And unfortunately, by the end of it, I feel like as an audience and as a viewer, I'm not. There's no closure to it because at the end of it, it's like, and it's still happening.
Yeah. Yeah, it felt there was no resolution towards the end. It's just kind of like building awareness for what's going on.
Absolutely, yeah. Porcelain War. This one, I thought I kind of really enjoyed this one. It says under warring fighter jets, Ukrainian artists Salva, Yava, and Andre choose to stay behind, deflating, uh, defiantly finding beauty in mid destruction. They show that although it's easy to make people afraid, it's hard to destroy their passion for living. And I think that's a great description of what this documentary was about.
Yeah.
You have these people who were artists, graphic designers. I feel like that to me that was the most kind of shocking part about it. You have all these people living their normal lives and now forced to be soldiers defending their home, and they're doing it as a collective unit, and they're like practicing how to use these weapons, and use these drones to kind of get um, the military and out of their home so they can like they're defending their home, and it's something really passionate about that, you know.
I mean, I thought it was really cool just seeing the different porcelain paintings, the different little porcelain, I don't know, dinosaurs or dolls, whatever it is that they were making in the
Dragons,
the little dragon things. I mean, I thought it was really cool. I thought it was really. I mean, out of all of it, just in such dark material, it felt hopeful in a way.
absolutely. It's like even so, and toward the end we even saw them like fighting in this building, and you see how like hard that is, and like some days are going to be easier than others, but and then like you saw like you experienced what they went through just to survive that one incident. But then there, to your point, there's this beauty in this arts and this clever animation within their art, and also the music slaps in this. I love the music that's in it, and I was able to watch the Q&A that was afterward, and I love their story of like they the producers were asking like what music, you know, do you guys typically listen to, or that can best represent um, your country and what you stand for, and they recommended this artist, and they started editing with the music, and then they're like, oh no, we're in trouble because it actually works out really well, so they had to go and locate the Ukrainian artist who did all this music, and once they were able to find them and talk to them, the band was able to, they said, yeah, I want to support this 100%. We're going to give, you know, we're not going to charge you anything for using our music. And in addition to that, anything that we can make off of this documentary, we're just going to give it right back to the organization, right back to our people. So I think all around, this was like really, I think this was a well told documentary. This is the one that it did a really good job. Amidst destruction, like it says, there's this hopefulness that's surrounding it, and that's kind of nice to highlight in the midst of war.
And I don't remember what the guy's name is, but there was a line in there that that just really sat with me when he's just talking about them training and just how they feel about like training for war and like using these weapons of mass destruction. He's like, these weapons are horrible by definition, but they're honorable in practice. So I just thought that was just, to me, it was just really intriguing for it to say that. It's like you understand that it's the person behind it that's doing the damage. Like,
Yeah.
and, you know, because it's two sides using these weapons, and how they're using them is determining its intended purpose. Is what makes it, and that's what makes it honorable.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. Next, can you say the name to this one again?
Soundtrack de coup d'etat.
Thank you.
Really
This
long.
one's about jazz and decolonization are intertwined in this historic roller coaster that rewrites the Cold War episode that led musicians Abby Lincoln and Max Roach to crash the UN Security Council in protest against the murder of Patrice Labamba. I had no idea that's what that movie was about,
Yeah, neither
because
did I.
this documentary was batshit crazy.
It's got all over the place.
It's very much all over the place. You have these it's almost like this subject matter is dense, and it's 2.5 hours, which didn't help its case.
No.
And you're basically listening to this intense, chaotic jazz music through time, in addition to looking at historical footage of decolonialism, and it's a lot. It's a lot. And like on what's going on in the Cold War and how things that were happening in Africa were affecting things that were happening here in America, and some of the music that was being played. And like, I'll give it credit as far as it being an interesting experimental filmmaking, an interesting practice into that, and like how they were able to tell this narrative in this crazy way of weaving in politics and music. I'll give it credit there. But as far as me understanding the story, there was no way I understood a single thing what was going on.
No, not at all.
No, there was one point where I was like, I'm going to stop trying to understand and just experience this. It's like I'm gonna like about maybe 45 minutes in 2.5 hours. I was like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I kind of wish it was just traditionally constructed, because I feel like the
Mhm.
subject matter is really entertaining, but to me it was just overshadowed by, it was just distracted by the music. The music was good, but it didn't,
Yeah.
like, it didn't match for me. And then maybe I'm missing something. I'm not sure.
Mhm.
I don't know.
No, I'm with you. It didn't match for me either. Like there was obviously a strong disconnect, and this was mainly for people who, I feel like this documentary was done for historic buffs who like love their history, maybe have an interest in the Cold War, interested in jazz music,
I
and
love
understand these
jazz.
players. Who understand these players and these people, and maybe we're part of this time, and like, oh, this is an interesting perspective on this particular event that happened in history. And for me, I'm like, I am not. I was not born during this time. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, good. Yeah, and there was other ways I was like, I was not born in this time, so I don't know what's going on. So for me, this is like I'm trying to ingest this as part of a history lesson, but at the same time, it's just being chaotically put together.
Yeah.
And again, I can give it credit for being a great showcase on experimental filmmaking, but as far as me understanding and appreciating the subject matter, did not happen.
Very distracting.
Very, very much distracting. And the last one we're going to talk about is Sugarcane, which follows an investigation into abuse and missing children in the in an Indian no,
Residential.
thank you, school sparks. Let me start over. An investigation into abuse and missing children at an Indian residential school sparks a reckoning on a nearby sugarcane reserve. There you go. Got through that. Yeah, this one is another situation where storytelling matters. And I feel like aside from highlighting the tragicness that happened within this Indian reserve, I didn't get much out of this one either.
Yeah, same. To me, this would have been stronger as a short. Just,
Yes.
I felt like it just had a lot of extra, like it became about this family, and like them going through it. So it's almost like, I mean, I don't know. It just seemed a little off to me. Like I didn't connect with the material.
Yeah, and also there's a way of like again how it's being told, and so there's one way of highlighting the tragedy, but in a sense it's again bringing awareness to a tragic situation. But there's also he's trying to like fish information out of the people who were involved, and they didn't want to talk about it. And then we're also following another people who were affected by it who were visiting the Pope, and I don't understand where that led either. As like he was there to, I don't know why he was there. Like why he flew to Rome to, like to get closure to what the Pope had to say about this particular situation.
I thought they were there to get. I thought there was some information that the Vatican had about their school, and that's why they were there.
But no information was revealed.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know why he had to be there for that either, unless he was there as a representative for something. I'm not entirely sure, but I think again, I think you're right. It's just like it wasn't clear on what we were what story we were trying to tell. Again, are you trying to bring awareness to the situation? You did that. I think that was done. But then after that, very similar to No Other Land, what other stories do you have to tell within this? And I don't think there was much to tell afterward, aside from here's this horrific situation and the people who were affected by it. Um, and like I think you're right. This could have been a 45-minute short, and it would have been much stronger with a tighter story.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, and these are the nominees for the documentary feature film. I think overall, I think we had a weak selection in my opinion.
I agree.
There wasn't much. There wasn't a lot to hang on to. And obviously we had our favorites. We just talked about it, but overall, as far as the categories or like the full category list, I feel like in years past we had a stronger selection to kind of let us sit with us a little bit more than these. I feel like at the end of the day, I might not to say they were forgettable, but like it doesn't sit with me as long as others have.
Yeah, agreed. I totally agree.
So now let's dive in and start wrapping up our last bit into our animated feature film nominees, and we're going to be first talking about Wallace and Gromit, Revenge Most Foul, a film from the United Kingdom, and the story follows top dog Gromit springs into action to save his master when Wallace's high-tech invention goes rogue, and he is framed for a series of suspicious crimes.
I thought it was a cute movie. I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
You know, it was kind of just like a fun adventure film, kind of like a slapsticky kid. Like I was able to watch it with the kids, my younger kids, and they were all able to enjoy it. It was nice to see claymation without claymation penises everywhere. So that was nice. That was also a nice change from the shorts we watched.
Yeah, I think ultimately I just took this as here's another fun, silly adventure with Wallace and Gromit,
which I was totally okay with.
Yeah, and I think obviously this film is being highlighted for its well use of claymation. This is not an easy thing to do, and when done right, and when it can be done in an entertaining way, you see the results from it. So yeah, I don't think there's much to kind of take away from the story. It was a very silly. It was a movie made for children.
Yeah,
and so you kind of appreciate it's the animation style, which they have been doing very well for multiple years on end. And another, like for those who are into these stories, I think this was a solid one.
Yeah, solid film.
Solid film. Definitely. I'm not sure. I think there's an argument on the nomination, I would say. When we originally talked about which the animated films that were being nominated, there was one that I said the only one film that was technically snubbed was Moana 2, but there was another one that I omitted, which was Piece by Piece, the documentary from Pharrell Williams, which I feel like that would be an interesting perspective on, like, you're telling your story through Legos.
Yeah.
And that one I feel like could have maybe replaced this one. I haven't seen Piece by Piece, so I can't speak to it. But I feel like that one, if you want to give it more variety to different levels of animation, like this one could have technically been swapped out if you wanted to highlight like Lego animation.
True. That's a good point.
But with that, nothing against Wallace and Gromit. It's just the story was not as what's the word? There wasn't much of a story there. It was just again.
It was very straightforward. They lock up the penguin. Penguin once he gets his vengeance. Gromit creates this little gnome robot. It was pretty cute. He goes around and how he was able to change the programming and make it evil, and then it started doing evil things, and it was just silly. They stole everything around the neighborhood and made like this underwater submarine. It was weird.
Yeah, it was again very, very silly. Very silly at the end of the day. There's really not much to go off of. It's just kind of is what it is on one of this particular film.
Yeah.
But let's dive into our next topic. Another film. This is a 2-time Oscar nominee, nominated for Best Animated Feature as well as Best International Feature, and it's a film from Latvia, and it follows a cat who is a solitary animal, but as its home is devastated by a great flood, he finds refuge on a boat populated by various species and will have to team up with them despite their differences. This film was beautifully animated.
Oh my god,
Let's
it
just
was
start
so
out
pretty.
there. Gorgeous film. Not a word of dialogue was in this movie.
Which
I feel like that
to me
was-
that was the most the most interesting thing. The fact that this movie was technically made in another language, but we didn't need any sort of subtitles because we were just using kind of like our human instinct of watching human like human just interaction with with each other, and we're able to visualize and conceptualize the story very easily. This story was very easy to follow. I actually really enjoyed this movie.
Yeah, I enjoy this one a lot as well. And I feel like there wasn't much going on, but there was also a lot that was going on. And honestly, this movie played like a video game, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Like I could have played the cat. Like you could have been the cat going through these scenarios. And it's kind of relying on visual storytelling to get the message across. The only thing that I could not buy, because again, suspension of disbelief, but also if we're saying that these animals are not talking and has high level thinking, I'm just using these as these are normal animals. Uh, no way normal animals can steer a boat. Not buying it. If I was
That's your
going to get a
gripe.
gripe on it,
That's your gripe with the film.
that's it. That's the only one. It's like I can pretend that they're friends. I can get by that. And they went through this journey together. But I could not buy that they learned how to steer a boat. But also in the sense, this movie could have been had full dialogue into it and just followed this journey.
Yeah.
But I just find it, to your point, really interesting. They didn't need dialogue to tell this story, and they were kind of just reacting in their own way, and like just seeing their survival instincts, all of them, to kind of get through this. And here's this great flood that's like, I was trying to understand the mechanics of the flood because it just kept rising and rising.
Yeah,
That one to me was a
made
little
it seem
bit
like
interesting.
almost like a Noah's Ark kind of flood, like the flood that took out the world. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like it just kept
And also-
rising, and then it eventually just went down.
And then also, was this like in a fantasy land?
Yeah, I mean there were cat statues everywhere. All the
True.
people were gone.
The people were definitely gone, and I was a little bit confused because, like, is this a world of fantasy? Like, is there a lot? Like, we saw these massive structures, we saw these birds that are not normal-looking birds. No one, I don't know what happened to the other bird. He just kind of went up in the sky and never came back in the glow. And
I thought he died. I thought he died and like went to heaven, or like he just
Oh.
died. It seemed like very, I don't know, just very very ethereal.
Yes, yeah, and then like they went up into the mountains. Like, I just feel like this could have been a video game. I feel like this, as much as this movie is getting a lot of high praise, especially for its animation, like I just feel like I would rather play this. This feels like something I could have played. You know
You
what I
just
mean?
wanna
It
be-
just feels like a weird thing.
You just want to be the cat, don't you?
I want to be the cat. Yeah, I just want to be the cat, or the other animal, the one that the first species that she interacts, not with the dog, but
Oh
the
yeah,
other one, whatever that was.
the beaver.
Uh,
Was it the beaver? No,
Was it a beaver?
no, it wasn't a beaver. The beaver is the one that had the boat.
Yeah, was that a beaver?
I think so. They built dams. All the dams are flooded, so he built a boat. That's how I saw it. I could be wrong.
Oh, let's see it as a beaver. I'm not sure what that animal was, but he was fun. The lemur was fun.
Yeah, yeah.
The dogs were jackasses.
Assholes.
They're a bunch of assholes. Especially like the other dogs that came into play. But yeah, it's just a story about survival and friendship at the end of the day. Like friendships in in places you weren't expecting, with the different species you weren't expecting. You can tell that she was a very scared cat, but through time she was able to kind of, she was very happy being alone. But then at the very end, when the bird, I guess, died, she wanted to be with her friends, and she was able to connect with her friends at the end of the movie, and it was a nice happy ending.
Yeah, it was very cute. Once again,
Very
a movie I was able to watch with my 4 and 6-year-old, and they were able to follow the movie from start to finish.
Yeah, and again, highlighting the animation, beautifully animated.
Absolutely.
And without any dialogue, I think the story was able to get across very beautifully. Like, and it also caused tension. There was one moment where I thought they killed the cat.
Yeah.
I was like, the cat can't swim up anymore. I was like, did they just kill the cat? Oh my god, that's so tragic. What animal are we gonna follow next? And all of a sudden, the whale just comes up. I was like, oh damn, okay.
See,
But then
But then the whale saved the cat, but the cat couldn't save the whale.
That's sad. That was also there's a very tragic way to end the story too.
Yeah, yeah, very sad.
Um, and yeah, it's like there's kind of a lot going on there, but again, not a lot. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like
It
we're just
was
going
enough,
along this journey of survival and friendship.
and it was
That's
a
it.
solid 90 minutes. Like it wasn't very long. It
Oh,
wasn't super long. It was great. Loved it.
easy breezy 90 minutes.
Yeah.
But yeah, a solid entry into the animated feature films for sure. I thought this was a great selection. And the last film we're going to be talking about to wrap up all of our nominations
Not a
is
kid's movie.
Memoir of a Snail, a bittersweet memoir of the melancholic woman called Grace Podell, a hoarder of snails, romance novels, and guinea pigs. Your thoughts on Memoir of a Snail?
This was an animated movie that was not meant for children because it was just sad from start and bittersweet at the very end.
Yeah.
But I think overall it was like it was an enjoyable film. Like I thought it was like I was able to follow the narrative. I was intrigued. Sarah Snook, who I didn't realize plays Grace
Hmm.
Pudell, who Sarah Snook is. She's from
Uh, uh, Succession.
thank you, Succession. So it was great to have her voice in this film. Kind of a also Eric Bana was in this film. Like there's some pretty good names in here. Just looking into it. Um, I like the stop motion animation. I thought it was kind of cool. I think some of the subject matter was kind of weird.
Mm.
Seeing this, a lot of sex scenes, like just this weird animated nudity. I just don't understand why these movies need to, like, why does this have to be a part of the storytelling? I don't know. I thought some of that stuff was like seeing her boyfriend's fat fetish. That was strange. But I thought it was kind of like an endearing story between her and her twin brother, and just all this heartache and loss throughout their world. But yet they still kind of had like this beautiful beginning, bittersweet with their dad because yeah, they weren't in a great place, but they all kind of had each other and they loved each other, and then just these kids just step by step just dealing with one devastation after another devastation.
This was the movie that took me most by surprise. There was like you kind of just look at a poster, you look at like maybe a few images, and you kind of already predetermine what this movie might be. And especially for the ones we haven't seen before, like obviously we what we're going into the Wild Robot and Inside Out 2, but then Flo and Wallace and Gromit is like, okay, I heard a little bit about certain movies, and I kind of understand like the vibe I'm going into. Going into this one, I knew nothing about it, and I was shockingly surprised of how much I was invested into this story. Like they pulled you in immediately into like this narrative of like this this comedic this it was a comedy in a way, but also it was like a tragic comedy because
Yeah.
each like they had some moments of levity in it, like these little jokes that are in here, but also the way that she was telling the story, it was deeply, deeply sad. But I wanted to hear more of the story,
Yeah, I actually kind of
and
liked it.
and I liked it too, yeah. And it's a film from Australia. Um, which is again kudos to them. And I don't know, it just makes you think about your own life, and especially toward the end of the short, as like you were trapping yourself as like a snail, and there are many things you could have done to get your brother back, and instead you were kind of defaulting into your safe space. And even as the movie tagline with like life can only be understood backwards, but we have to live it forwards. And I thought that was a very endearing line, that as she's reflecting on the events that led her here, as she's telling the story of her life to her snail. Um, and you understand how, in a way, like again, life can only be understood backwards, meaning that you have to live life to understand your life, to then move forward with your life. And I feel like that, like as a lot of death that happened in this movie, you're seeing how even the older woman, I forgot her name,
Pinky.
how she Pinky, she was like reflecting on all the things she was doing in her life, but only that because she had lived through all those experiences that she was able to understand the life that she lived and and stuff like that, and she was able to move forward with her life. And I feel like having her kind of with that realization at, I'm assuming she's probably like in her 30s at this point, maybe, um and kind of having that realization toward the end, in addition to like her brother coming back, which was a nice touch, kind of like one of the shining moments in this movie was her brother coming back and not being dead at the end of it. But just all this tragedy that she was on, all this death that she was surrounded by, and you can see how she became the shell of a person that she became, and then seeing her grow out of that shell and just doing the thing. It's like she was able to go to film school and make a stop motion animation, and like no one liked it, but she said but now she can say that she was able to do it.
Yeah, she
Like
at
she
least
did
did
it.
she did the thing.
Yeah. And so I know there's a lot that I was able to resonate with, and there's even it brought a tear to my eye. Not like I was bawling by the end of it, but I was like, there's something about this that like, wow, this story really got to me.
Yeah, especially like the stuff with her brother. Like once her brother came back, I was like, oh, he lived. He didn't die. I love that. I mean, I love the way they kind of buried that lead and how he made his way to her and he kept his promise about crossing the desert for her. I thought it was really
Yeah.
good. Surprisingly
As
good.
well as there was a moment where I was, again, the other thing that brought a tear to my eye was able to spread their father's ashes on the roller coaster.
Just
I
like
was
he
like,
wanted. Just a reminisce of bringing back to like their happiest day.
yeah. I was like, man, what a moment that was. And even again, just tragedies of having these kids, like, their mother died when they were in the womb. His dad got a tragic car accident that affected his mobility and that affected him working. And then like even the kids, like the way of life. The kids were just very fine reading their books and being together. And then they had to clap in order to get their father awake. And then even them saying like, and then we clapped, but this time he never woke up. And it's like, oh my God.
Oh, please wake up, Daddy. It
I was
was
like,
very sad.
gee, and then from there, like we had to separate the kids. Like that was their only life. That was the only thing that made them happy, was being together. And then they had to separate. It's like he introduced a tragic element, like sad after sad story, into this, and it was just like even overcoming those sad occasions, like holding on to hope. Like for both of them, they were only holding on to each other in their letters. Um, and like on her wedding day, hearing that your brother had died, it's just like, man, like these people, these kids, they can't catch a break. And then realizing your husband just has a fat fetish and just been feeding you this entire time. It's like, come on, man. But yet there was this hopefulness that was presented throughout this entire movie. This surprised me of how much I enjoyed it, and so much so that like this is the reason why we watch movies. Like this is, for me, this is a prime example of that. It was like
Absolutely.
expecting the unexpected, like
And,
just being swept away in the story and really feeling something by the end of it.
and I kind of had a feeling that it was real, so I just did a quick search, and apparently yes. So I said, is this story based on real life? Yes. Memoir of a Snail is loosely inspired by real life events from writer-director Adam Elliott's own experiences, much like his previous works, Harvey Crumpet, Mary and Max. While the story itself is fictional, Elliott stated that many of the themes of loneliness, misfits, family struggles, and personal hardships are drawn from his own life. Personal connections to the story. Grace Pudel's character, Elliott, has mentioned in interviews that Grace's journey is as an outsider reflects his own struggles of growing up with a disability. He has a tremor disorder. Autobiographical elements. His past films, such as Harvey Crumpet and Max, also blend dark humor with deeply personal themes. He writes about social outcasts, mental health, unconventional relationships, mirroring real life experiences. Snail symbolism. Elliott has said that his love for snails come from childhood, and they serve as a metaphor for resilience, slow but steady progress, and carrying emotional baggage. Oh, I can definitely see
Oh
that
wow.
one. That's a really good one. All key
Yeah.
ideas in the film. So yeah, I thought that was really interesting.
No, I thought so as well. And like the fact that, yeah, it just kind of it just resonates with you with a lot. And he was able to get all these personal themes in there. And to me, this when I was watching this made me. I felt a very similar to way when how we were watching Baby Reindeer, and like here's this tragic, this this situation that's happened, and all of it is tragic as well as saddening and depressing, but also when you tell that story in a very interesting way, it keeps your audience engaged no matter how sad the story gets, you're able to like hang on to that hopefulness. And then within all of that like tragedy, you're able to make something out of this. In this case, it was Baby Reindeer for his story, but and also for this one, it was the memoir of a snail. Tell that in a very creative way, and also do that in stop motion, in claymation. Like, come on, like that's you could have told the story many different ways, and you decided to tell it this way. So I think that's just the times of just showing you the true passion this guy has as a filmmaker, as well as telling these stories effectively.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I love the symbolism and kind of the story behind it. And yeah, the claymation nudity was kind of weird, but whatever. It wasn't as weirdly placed as the shorts were.
That's fair. Yeah. Yeah, I would 100% watch this again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would
Like-
absolutely watch this again.
As much as, how sad it was to watch this. Again, there was a little bit of hope that was kind of there and a couple of life lessons along the way. Yeah, very well done. This one was, out of all of them, the one I was most surprised that I was going to enjoy. So,
Yeah,
So,
I
yeah.
didn't think I was going to enjoy it at all, to be honest.
yeah, I didn't think so either. Yeah. And there's some that you expect, and the other one's like, oh, this was nice. All right. Here we go.
All right.
All right, here it is.
So funny.
But yeah, anyway, that's our spoiler reviews, our takes on a couple of the latest animated films, documentaries, all the shorts. Like, we're well away into our Oscar season. Again, a little bit different than how we normally structure it, but we kind of just want to give our due. We're doing all this work, so we might as well talk about them and give them their own time to shine in a way. But yeah, we're almost done tackling all these nominations, and I think we have 6 more to go. Four,
Maybe.
6.
Either 4 to 6. It's just very, very small.
Yeah,
We
and
got all the big
like
ones
I
out
said,
of the way.
we have all the big ones out of the way. Yeah, a lot of the big ones out of the way, and anything we haven't covered in our previous episodes, we're going to be tackling in our predictions episode, and that's what's going to be happening next week. It's exciting. This is the episode that I look forward to every single year. All of our work is kind of boiling down to this episode.
Yeah. And the
So-
results. Those are one of my 2 favorite shows: our predictions episode and the reactions episode.
Yes, yeah, and see how close we were in our predictions, and I've been reading this, and I think I very much agree to it. This Oscar season has been all over the place.
Oh yeah, with all the drama, with the Amelia Perez stuff, and
Mhm.
just Honora kind of rising up through the ranks, and now us getting some eyeballs on some of these other films. It kind of changes my initial impression from hearing the nominations. So I'm excited for next week.
Yeah, so am I, and like I feel like, and also just excited to watch the Oscars because
Yeah.
in years past, there's always a clear front runner that's winning everything. That was the case last year for Oppenheimer, so we already knew going in that Oppenheimer was a clear front runner of winning, and it won so much, and like that makes it a little bit boring. But then in the case of like, I don't know what's going on. There's like 4 different front runners right now to possibly take Best Picture, so who knows what's going to happen, as well as some of the other awards as well. And so I kind of like that there's not a clear winner here. I kind of like that about it. So like this makes this prediction episode as well as our recap even more exciting.
Okay, all right, I'll give you that.
But anyway, that's all the show we have for you guys this week. If you want more from us, you can follow us on our social media channels on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok at Box Office Bingers, our X and Letterbox page at Box Office Binger, and our Threads and Instagram page at Box Office_Bingers. The fun doesn't stop here. It continues on all of our social media channels. So be sure to follow all of them to get, to just be aware of what we're doing, and just kind of join in on the movie fun. Yeah, like we said before, wrapping up our Oscars nominees talk, going into our predictions episode next week, episode 250.
What? Wow.
Can you believe
250.
that? 250.
That's kind of crazy.
That's nuts. That's nuts. And I think again, it's always fitting that that episode kind of in lines with our predictions episode. An episode that we look forward to every single year, kind of matched with a nice even 150 number.
Yeah, I like it. I'm liking it.
So am I. And then again, our recap shortly after the Oscars. This is our time to shine. I love it. I love it. I mean, some of the work is a little bit, some of this content is a little bit brutal, a little bit dense, but it's worth it at the end of the day to kind of see like this is the peak of cinema according to the Academy.
Yeah.
Out of all the year. So let's see what all the hype is about, if there's any hype at all.
And it's always
And I
interesting
think
to see. It's always interesting to see where we align to what they end up picking, which we're usually pretty close. We're not, maybe we don't get 100%, but we're somewhere in like the 70 to 90 range.
yeah, I would say that. Yeah, for sure. One of these years we'll get that full 100.
Get that full hundo.
Full. But yeah, come back next week for our Oscars predictions episode. If you're liking our coverage of the Oscars and how we take our nominations, let us know. Maybe if there's something new we're trying. Let us know how we're doing. If we don't hear from you, then we think we're doing a great job.
Yeah. And if you're interested, if you're watching on YouTube, you can go ahead and we have an Oscar playlist that has all the Oscar movies that we've reviewed so far, and all our content relating to the Oscars is kind of all compiled together in one place. So you can kind of pick and choose if you want to peruse through some of our past reviews relating to this year's Oscars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so come back next week for, again, we're continuing our Oscar coverage with our coveted predictions episode, where we do a deep dive on all the Oscar nominations, and we'll give our predictions who we think will win and who we think should win, and then who we think will win. So that's always a fun talk that we're getting to next week. So with that, come back next week for more movie fun. You're not going to regret it. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for listening to us just talking about movies. Really do appreciate it. And for that, I've been your host, Matt Diaz.
I've been Ernesto Santos. See ya.